Hi, everybody. I'm Sharon Spurlock, Senior Director of Family Education at the St. Louis Arc, and I'm here to talk to you today about how to think forward for your family members through the line of your vision. Um, we're going to use a Charting a Life course form today called a trajectory, but we're really going to use this cool concept called anticipatory learning. And I'm a real fan of anticipatory learning. So I want everybody to kind of have this in your vocabulary to think about and use at any age with the people you love or with yourself for that matter. This particular anticipatory trajectory is about employment through the lens of family. And I guess I want to start off by saying that employment is something that really we start shaping for our family members when they're very, very young. You know, when children are little bitty, they are learning about careers, they are being asked what they want to do when they grow up. And so all of us kind of tend to think forward in our lives. And so I hear families, young families sometimes say, I can't think that far ahead, but you don't have to think about the details. You have to think about really what you want in your family member's life in kind of the broader way. So this trajectory, as all do, start with the vision for what you want and what you don't want on the right side of the page. And when you think about employment just as a concept for people, most of the time, employment means something about financial security and economic self sufficiency. So we all have jobs that help us to have money in our pocket. Even when we're kids, that first lemonade stand, that's probably one of the reasons we decided it would be a good idea to do that. It also makes us feel good when we're able to do something from start to finish, when we feel like we've got a sense of independence because we're going to go work and do something that's our responsibility to do. And those things allow us to build confidence, confidence in our skills, but also confidence in our decision making so that we can continue forward from what we've learned and say, I want to choose this because I've had this experience and I know what I like and I don't like. More broadly, I think most of us have found social opportunities within employment. Sometimes you become good friends with coworkers, or maybe just co-work friends where you enjoy sitting down to lunch with them, hearing about their stories. And if you're lucky, you have had a chance to find a mentor in the workplace who really believes in you, sees your potential, and helps you to move forward. So those are all opportunities that everybody can have in employment realm. And then finally, employment. I think all of us feel like we want to be a part of the bigger engine of our family, that be able to contribute in our best way possible to the family dynamic. And so being able to contribute by going to work, maybe bringing home some money, or just being, engaged in something that's really meaningful to us can be a really great way to contribute. On the flip side, what I don't want is that, to be discouraged. I don't want people to say, you can't do that, or that's not for you. I don't want to feel hopeless because there's no opportunities for me. And I super don't want to be bored, having to do busy work or something that's not a real task that needs to be done is very frustrating. And when I get bored, I tend to maybe have some behavior that's not ideal. So nobody wants to be bored. I don't want to be lonely and lack social connections, which we've already talked about how employment can provide you with so much of that. And I don't want negativity and people, again, having low expectations saying, employment's not for you, or I don't think you can do this job. That's a very crushing kind of a thing to hear, and to hear it many, many times really is a kind of a form of trauma, I believe. So, as we move to this arrow, the arrow is the steps you take to move in the direction you want to go. And so, as we know, it's not a straight up and down arrow. Usually, there's quite the up and down, but it's really important for a person and for their supporters to know where you're heading, because otherwise, how do you know which choices to make? So, if that vision is what you want for your family member, in terms of employment, then think about how you can impact that at every stage of life. If we start down here at the very bottom, this is the earliest stages of a child's life. Reading can be a way to engage children to think about jobs, the fact that people have jobs, and there's all kinds of children's books that talk about the jobs of a zookeeper or a garbage man or a teacher. So that's how we learn a lot of the time about possibilities, what's out there, and making sure that we include kids with disabilities in the conversations about what do you want to be when you grow up. You know, that's how people dream, that's how they think about possibilities. But unfortunately, a lot of times kids with disabilities have been left out of that conversation. We also want to build that expectation that you're going to fill a role in our family and you're going to take responsibility. So start giving your children chores at the earliest age possible. It doesn't have to be a big chore. Maybe it's just putting their own clothes in a drawer. Maybe it's pulling the bedspread up on the bed so that the bed is partially made. But finding chores that are the right chore for the right kid at the right time, and then building on those so that as you move through school age into transition age, kids are picking up more and more responsibility to not only support the family, but to build their skills that can translate to work, and also to build their confidence. You know, somebody that is able to make their own breakfast or set an alarm clock to get to work, to school in the morning, or even take the trash out, has the capacity to really feel good about what they're bringing to the table. Teaching interview skills. This is an interesting one, but I think communication is so important in the workplace. And how are we helping people build their ability to answer open-ended questions? How are we helping people tell a story about themselves? And at some point along this trajectory, how do we teach people to understand their unique gifts and talents and the supports they may need that are connected to disability or not? Because being able to talk about that is also something that's really important as you move towards employment. Talking about money, understanding the value of money doesn't mean that you need to know the difference between a $5 bill and a $10 bill, but it means that you understand that there's ways to get money and that having money allows you to have access to some of the things that you want. Honestly, with many people I know that have rejected employment in their adult life, it's been a lot of times because all their needs have been met. So I think setting some boundaries around money, helping children to make decisions about how they're going to spend a limited amount of money, those are all really good things that we can do to move forward with our kids. On this side, we're talking about advocacy, making sure that your children and you are attending school meetings, expressing what this vision is for the future, and understanding your rights in terms of establishing goals, getting full access to the information that's being shared about you. It's really important for kids to start to be engaged in those meetings. And so for a kindergartner, that might mean just coming and sharing what they want to be when they grow up, or what is important to them when they start kindergarten. For a fifth grader, it may be more detailed where they can say, this year, I want to learn how to do this particular skill. I'd like to learn more about this thing that interests me, and things I don't want. I don't want to be bullied or left out of situations. So the older you get, the more you can take ownership of the conversation and also of leading the conversation about your goals and what's important to you. Again, we talked about that idea of finding a mentor. So that's a possibility in here as well. Somebody that could show you what it means to really work at the zoo or be a fireman, because those jobs aren't exactly what we think they are from seeing them on TV or reading about them. So your exposure is really key here. When I'm out and about and I see people working, do I understand what some of the things they're doing in their job are? If they work in a restaurant, if they work in a library, if they work in in an office. And so making sure that not only are we exposing kids to work, but then opening up some conversation about what that looked like. How do you think you'd like that? What would you like? What wouldn't you like in that scenario? And then kind of moving forward into more active engagement around employment type things. Volunteering as a family can be a really, really great way to have some family time, give back to your community, and also start to see how your children move forward in a world that's similar to a work environment. Are they able to complete a task? Do they have the communication skills to tell people when they need more work or when they need to stop and use the bathroom? Those are opportunities that we can all engage with and then feel really great at having had that experience. Making sure that you're talking to Uncle Joe and the neighbor down the street that's great with cars and other people that you're engaged with so you know about what their jobs are. Because guess what? That neighbor down the street who repairs cars, they might have a job opportunity. And if they've talked to your kiddo for 2 or 3 years about cars, they might open the door and say, yep, we're going to give them a chance to come in and show us what they've got. And we're going to teach them on the job. And then continuing to kind of be a part of that discovery process, making sure we understand what we know about a person's skills. What do they like? What do they not like? What are some of the parameters around a successful environment? Is it quiet? Is it busy? Does this environment inside or outside? Kind of really defining the parameters. So I hope that's something that you can use in the future. And I'm enjoyed sharing this with you today. Thank you.